April Hall is back as a guest for our interview today, and we're going to talk about after she became the CEO of the Cadet organization in Los Angeles. She was recruited into the Commodore's Messenger organization, and then she was assigned to the Rehabilitation Project Force, which is the Scientology prison camp, when she was only 15 years old. And she's going to go into that story. And then we're going to talk about when she eventually went up to the secret hidden base at Gilman Hot Springs and when she first met L. Ron Hubbard. I think you're going to find this interesting and entertaining. I hope you stick around, watch the show. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher. I'm here with my co-host, Janice Gillum-Grady. Good day, Janice.
Good day, Mark. Good day, everyone. And we are having another good show today with a repeated guest.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should just get right into it. I mean, I do see I coordinated colors with you.
Yeah, we're getting warmer, so it's a little easier for me to wear Hawaiian shirts now. But yeah, that's good. Good for you, Janice.
I guess I could have gotten a yellow or an orange or any sort of color would have matched.
Well, that's kind of how Hawaiian shirts are. It's like you fit in with any kind of color scheme.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest again?
Yeah, we have a return guest who we had a wonderful time with last time with telling stories, and we've got her back again, and that's April Hall.
How you doing, April?
Hi, I'm great.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
You're here still visiting Janice, and you're over at Janice's house right now, and we're happy to have you here in Las Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still having fun.
Lots
of
fun.
That's great. Well, where we left off on the last episode, you were just gotten recruited into this Commodore's Messenger org by Janice's sister, Terry. And that's kind of where we left it off. So we figured we will go forward from there. So whenever you want to start, go right ahead.
Well, that transfer was kind of interesting because when that all was going down, RPF was happening big time in PAC. Well, everywhere for Scientology and the Sea Org, because there was a definition of what Janice likes to talk about a lot is the rock slam.
The List 1 RS the List 1 RS program.
All the executives, they were checking them from the top down. So top down was going to the RPF. And my mom was at the top, so she was one of the first people to go to the RPF. And she went to the RPF while I was CO at Cadet org. And then when I was going over to CMO, amnesty came out where anybody that wanted to leave could leave, and they would have no freeloader debt, and they wouldn't get declared. They could just go. And my mom and my dad at the time, Gary, took advantage of that, and they left. She wanted me to go with her, and I made her sign guardianship over. I didn't want to leave. I was going to.
How old were you then?
I was 14, going to the CMO. I went to CMO PAC, and I was going to school.
Who did you have her sign guardianship over to?
Yeah.
It was that lady that I told you about. I finally remembered her name, Karen Campbell.
Oh, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay. Karen was a messenger on the ship.
Yeah. And in Clearwater, that's where I met her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she was in CMO PAC. She was, and Barbara
Tompkins?
Saker.
Harris.
Saker.
Yeah.
Silver.
Oh, yeah. Saker.
Mary Tom
Yeah,
Saker
you're right.
at that time.
Newton, Barbara
Uh,
Newton.
Yeah, exactly. She was the CO. Well, Terry was the CO, but remotely, and turned everything over to Barbara and was coming in and checking on things. And the first thing I was assigned to was the EPF there, the CMO EPF. And we had to
Okay,
do
Estates Project Force.
laundry and learn how to do
Clean
things
rooms.
exactly the way LRH liked it. In case we had to take over from the housekeeping unit or be with him by ourselves, we needed to know how to do all of those things. And I was learning with, I remember Dion and Jory
Oh yeah.
were on the
Yeah,
EPF
but
with me.
that was up at INT that they were in the EPF with you, right?
No?
They
No,
were
it
in
was in
PAC.
PAC, Janice, before
Yeah.
they came up. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was before they came up. Who else? Robbie,
Crivello.
yes, Robbie Crivello.
Robbie Crivello, yeah.
And
Al
I love
Crivello's son.
Boy, but Robbie was so much fun.
Yeah, he was extremely self-conscious about his weight and his acne at that time. That's what I remember about him. And he was always trying to move up quick, like figure out some
Right.
way around instead of going through the proper channels. He wanted to do a workaround and do it quick. That's what I
Well,
remember about him.
We actually talked about Robbie Crivello when we did the interview with Tom Francis, because Tom Francis was in the truck with him when Robbie drove into that tree and ended up with major injury to his head with and Tom had to get into the medical officer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then
So I
then he
guess that
left
was
and I don't
him
know what
taking
happened.
a shortcut again.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so those people were on the EPF, and I finished the EPF, and I was put on as chief officer, I think. I switched between chief officer and supercargo, and I'm not sure, which happened first. I don't remember. And then we were doing projects and missions into all the PAC orgs, handling this sec check, security checking thing for the RSs. And I was
Rock
going
slams.
to school at that time. And like I told you, Sylvia Hare helped me through, tutored me so I could get extra credit and finish early. And I was doing, like I said, the administrative courses. So I was doing all of that at that time. And I had a girlfriend, I don't know if I should say her name, that was there at the time. I'm just going to say it. It was Rochelle Russell.
Mm-hmm.
She made it up to end eventually, way after me.
Rochelle Russell.
Yes.
Was that the Rochelle that married Bill Dendu?
No.
No. Oh, I don't know any other Rochelle.
Rochelle.
Rochelle. No.
No.
It's okay.
Yeah, she and Shelley Drayton were Cadet org, co-workers and good friends. They eventually came up to end, way after I was up there. But anyway, in PAC, the reason I brought her up is because she was taking bets with other staff members at CMO PAC that I was going to go to the RPF and that I would turn out to be an RSer.
Oh.
And I couldn't believe that. I was so hurt by that. And there was twins, Lisa and Andrea Estrada. they were in CMO PAC at the time as well. And I remember I was doing all-nighters to get these security missions, security check missions, and transfers of new COs on at the different organizations there in PAC, because the main CO was sent to the RPF.
Yeah, they kept getting sent to the
every
RPF.
executive in PAC was in the RPF.
Yeah.
It was
You know,
crazy.
just as a side note, I was in the flag readiness unit, like I said, in PAC at that time in 78 or whatever it was, 77, 78. And I actually was assigned as an expediter, Janice, for the mission that was doing the Rock Slam checks. It was led by Ron Gablehouse, Chris Reitzman, and Chris Spear. It was FMO 1881. It was famous, and I was basically a folder runner until I got sent.
1881. I remember that.
Yeah, until I got sent, to Flag, to Clearwater. So, but I remember it. But I talked to Grumps about it, when he was recently. He doesn't remember anything about it, which is okay. I was a nobody completely.
Andre,
everybody got sent to the RPF. Everybody got sent to the RPF. Yeah. It's crazy.
There are a lot of people who, when they did bad things, I mean, they're good people who were forced to do things that they disagreed with. And I'll tell you, they blank out on it, and I don't blame them. You know, who wants to remember that you did such evil, when you're a good person?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Janice, you got caught up in this. You got caught up in this RS thing too, as we've covered in other shows. You got sent to the RPF too because you RS'd.
Right, but we have to do a show on me in the RPF. We've not done that, but
no.
Yeah, we'll have to do that later. Sorry, April.
No worries. Yeah, so that was going on, and I was doing the missions, and I really was getting tired because I was doing school and doing the missions and pulling all-nighters, trying to get these done. And so I petitioned again, and I was told, no, you got to finish school. So I did. I got it done. I have a picture of me with Sylvia Hare giving me my diploma, high school diploma. I was so happy. I graduated at 15 and a half. And as time went on, Andre was the bosun on the RPF. And before my mom took advantage of the amnesty, I would visit her, and I would see Andre all the time. He was fantastic. They were
Andre Tabioyan?
Yeah, Andre Tabioyan. And they were doing, all-nighter renovations, getting the big blue building renovated.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
you'd see them running around, and they were doing the ASHO renovations, I think, at the time, and all that. Yeah,
they were doing all the renovations. So finally,
yes, I've got it.
I
What are you trying to show this? There.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go. And while I was in the CMO there before, in the beginning, I was getting telexes, all the LRH telexes. There was a confidential room in one of the offices. You had to go through 3 doors with 3 sets of keys to get in there. And I was the person that had those and handled those communications. There were telexes, and there was a MEME, which stood for Mission Equipment Acquisition Mission. I didn't make it up.
MOPM and MEME. Remember MOPM?
Yeah.
Mission Ops PAC move. That was Mark Ingber and Liz Ingber.
And Liz Ingber, yeah.
Yep. So at MEME, there was Sutter.
Mike Sutter. Steve
Nobis. Christy.
John Alesso.
John Warren, Jamie Warren.
How about Marty Rathbun? Wasn't he around then too doing?
He was doing the driving back and forth.
Right.
And they were getting equipment, and I was put on a project there. But before that, I did go to the RPF, and I found out after I was on the RPF that my girlfriend was betting that I would go. I couldn't believe that.
Now,
So
why
how much did she make? How much did she make on you going?
It wasn't money. It wasn't money.
Oh,
But how old were you, and why did you go? Were you considered a rock slammer?
I was a rock slammer.
A rock slammer. Okay.
I was an SP. Expressive person.
only with the best of them.
You know, April, on our merchandise site, we have a rock slammer T-shirt, both men and female version. It says rock slammer across the.
Yeah, well, they found out later that I really wasn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Just like Janice. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And how old are you? Like 15?
Janice, didn't you do the project that came down, or was that just Terry? That
No, I didn't do the project.
The RSer and everybody got out and got back pay and.
No, I was still in the RPF when everyone else was going out, and I'm like, hey, what about me? Everyone had forgotten about me. Left. I was at Monroe, one of the properties in La Quinta.
Oh, well, that's nicer than Pac.
Well, and then Janice, tell everybody how it got resolved, right? There was a mistake or something. How did it get resolved? And then all of a sudden these people were let out.
Well, on the RPF, while I was on the RPF, I was still in school. I hadn't gotten out. I hadn't finished school.
But how old were you? 15?
Yeah. I graduated at 15 and a half. So I had just turned 15.
But they put you on the RPF at 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was twinned up with one of the twins that was in the CMO at that time. Excuse me. It was Andrea, Lisa and Andrea. Andrea was my twin or my partner, know, that you go through the processes with. And I was going to school, and you're not supposed to talk to the RPF people. So I was like, well, how's that going to work at school? They're all there. And so at school, they were trying to separate from me at school. I'm like, God, this is just getting so nuts.
Crazy.
And they had a whole thing of bed bugs and scabies happen on the RPF. And I got scabies from the terrible circumstances that were there on the RPF. And I think my dorm had 15 people. And I thought it was bad over at Beacon Street.
Now, were the dorms in the tunnels? The RPF, did they live in the tunnels of the blue building?
They were upstairs. They were
in the blue building? They were upstairs in that main building?
Yeah.
When I went to the RPF in PAC, they were in the tunnels. That's another story.
And the tunnels are terrible, so hot.
Yeah.
And so dank and so creepy.
Yeah.
We had to clean the tunnels.
April, let me interrupt you for 1 second, just for our non people who are never in viewers, okay?
Sure.
Why would a 15-year-old girl like you agree to go into the Rehabilitation Project Force at that time? What was your thinking then?
Well, the meter said that I had evil intentions. So I was like, well, okay, I better fix that.
Right. And you were a Scientologist. You believed in what was going on in Scientology at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, because you could have left with your mother, but you decided you wanted to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I wanted to work with LRH.
Right.
And I did.
Yeah.
But
we'll get to that.
I thought it was, okay, if there's evil intentions there, let's fix it.
Right. There's something you needed to handle. Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. Okay, carry on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we did get to do some study, but they were trying to finish the big blue building and, the surrounding buildings like ASHO and AO. And so they were saying, okay, everybody's going to do a month or 2 months to finish that, and then you're going to have full-time study to make up for it.
So you basically
So-
were slave labor around the clock, full time. So you
Right,
had to give up your
right.
study for the greatest
Right.
good, for the greatest number of, for Scientology.
And the study was 5 hours a day that you were supposed to have while on the RPF.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and this is just what Scientology did in those days. The Rehabilitation Project Force was considered a workforce. That's what the executives who were in charge were like, well, no, it's more important that we do these renovations than clean these people up, and you know what I mean. And that was the thinking. It was that happened all the time, where they
Yeah.
would be used. So it happened later on when we were up at the int base, where they've got to
Always.
work around the clock, and so it was a slave labor force at the time.
Well, you
I
got to
remember
speed up.
Sorry, go ahead.
When the Markabians are coming, you got to get things done fast.
Yeah, exactly. I remember 3 specific incidents that happened that were kind of comical. One was in the tunnels that Janice mentioned. We had to clean those out. I mean, they were just packed with crud and garbage. And I found out that I'm allergic to food garbage. I can't handle it. I will insta throw up. I can't handle it. And I was put to clean the dumpster.
Oh.
So I'm in there with a hose and trying to clean it up and throwing up. And by the time I threw up like 3 times, I was like, okay, that's it. I said, I'm sorry. I'm just making more of a mess than I'm cleaning. You got to put me on something else.
That reminds me of, I won't say it.
To this day, even Stormy found that out. We were in Key West and we walked by a trash can that had food that really reeked.
Yeah.
And I just instantly threw up. I go, I don't feel good. Blah! And I threw up right away. She goes, oh my God, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I just can't handle that smell. So whenever she knows that there's a garbage smell, she goes, hold your nose. Because she knows I'll throw up instantly.
Right.
So that happened in the tunnels. And then another night, I was in the mess hall, the dining room for everybody cleaning up. And I had been up for 2 days because it had gone into time where we weren't in school. We were off school. And so, of course, they're going to take advantage and make you stay up. And I was so tired. I was standing there with a broom sweeping, and I fell asleep standing up with the broom in my hand. And somebody came by to check on me because I was just standing still with the broom. And they were like coming up to me and, what, are you okay? What's going on? Why aren't you sweeping? And I woke up and I fell down. That's how sleepy I was. And that you can fall asleep standing up. Anybody that had sleep problems, I'm like, I'll sleep for you. No problem. I couldn't imagine somebody having sleep problems. So that was another funny thing that happened. We had quite a few incidents happen like that. And when we did get to study, Andrea and I were doing the different things that you did with the e-meter and going through your checklists and auditing. And when we were doing that, the meter was broken. And so it was rock slamming constantly. And we both started crying because we're like, God, we're rock slamming on everything. And finally the supervisor came over and we had the best tech people because all the top tech people in PAC were on the RPF. So we had the best tech people with us while we were on course, while we were on study, getting through our evil intentions. And that, I think it was Hannah Eltringham that came over to me and said, "Oh, your meter's broken." But we were so upset because we were like, "Wow, look how evil we are! We're rock slamming on everything."
And that came out to be the problem. The e-meters had faulty mechanics in them, which was causing the rock slams.
And that's why everybody was going to the RPF. And when they
Yes.
discovered that, that's when they went, "Oh, we made a mistake.
No.
We're going to let you out,"
Well,
right?
before they discovered it, Kimmer Douglas said to Hubbard, "Something is wrong that so many people, this is more than 2%. You say 2% of SPs, suppressive persons,
2.5% are supposed to be SP. Yeah.
And Kimmer's like, something is awful wrong that this many people are rock slamming and have evil purposes and having to go to the RPF." So that's when Hubbard decided to look into it. But if it wasn't for Kimmer, it would probably still all be there.
Well, it was a misdefinition of the rock slam as well.
No, it was that faulty mechanics in the e-meter.
Oh, I remember the issue that came out, the HCOB, on the corrected definition of rock slam.
Well, when the meter's going like this, that's the rock slam. There's no
Who knows?
other definition.
That may have been put out as a PR thing so that people didn't go like, "Oh, it's the meters are."
Yeah, because I remember it. I remember it very clearly.
Yeah, I remember you can hear that needle hitting the edges and pinging off the edges. Yeah.
Yeah. And your sister came on mission, and everybody was security checked again for rock slams, and one by one we all came off the RPF, and I confronted Rochelle. She didn't go to the RPF. But she went to the RPF after that.
Oh.
For doing the betting. I disclosed that because prior to the rock slam being cleared up, no one was going to believe me because I was an evil person.
Right.
But when that got cleared up, I went back to CMO PAC, and she went to the RPF because she was heading up people doing bets on who is going to go to the RPF. That was her thing. She got people to do that.
Right.
Right. To this day, I can't even believe that happened. But after I came back to CMO PAC, we were doing missions to get everybody fixed up and back on post, and I got put on mission into MEAM. Mission Equipment Acquisition mission, that was sending all the equipment up to LRH for doing the tech films.
For Cine,
for Cine. So I was in MEAM doing a big inventory and checking the equipment for. There was some big flap with stuff missing and stuff getting damaged. So that's why I was put on mission in there to get an inventory done and inspect every single piece. And we actually had a lot of fun doing that. We would play tricks on each other. I remember one thing that happened in CMO PAC, we moved offices into a nicely renovated office for CMO PAC. And part of, you had double hats on a lot of things because there wasn't that many people in CMO PAC. So you had to hold a lot of different jobs. And one of my other jobs was medical, because my mom was a nutritionist and raised me with vitamins and nutrition. Too bad she didn't practice what she preached, but she did know.
Right.
And one day on April Fool's, I went into the office and I said, there's a foot fungus going around and it can really mess up your feet. Everybody has to take off their shoes and socks. I need to inspect everybody's feet. So everyone in the office took off all their shoes and socks. And then I was right by the door to the office, the main door to the office. And as soon as they all took their socks and shoes off, I went out that door and locked it. And I said, April Fools. And they, it was the door. Once they went out the door, they would be on gravel and hot cement. And so they didn't want to do that without shoes. So I had a good head start of running. And they were all running after me for that. It was funny. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Mickey Lipton probably would remember that if she's on here.
I don't know if Mickey watches.
Yeah, she was there. Kenny Lipton, Julie Catano, Barbara, Bella became the CO.
Bella Adams, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband was in LEC, Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those people were there.
April, I want to show this. This is a picture of you, what you look like around that time period, right?
Yes.
With that mischievous look on her face.
Young girl.
Yeah, I'm 15 and a half, 16 there.
That's just before you went up to INT?
Yes, we all had to get passports, and we all had to do the what is it we call our the minister's course?
Oh,
we all had to become ministers.
Yeah, during that time period, you had to be a minister.
Yeah, so that we couldn't, get taken into any wars or drafted.
Also depositions, things like that.
Right.
Testifying. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
April, let me ask you something. When you got your passport, did you have to turn it into someone, or you were able to keep it yourself?
No, I kept it myself.
Yeah. After we moved ashore, I kept my passport, but I've heard stories of people saying, "Oh, I had to turn in my passport, so I couldn't go back to Europe, and I didn't have my passport or anything." But I'm like, I don't remember that. On the ship, our passport had to be turned in because when we went to different ports, we all had to be checked into by the officials. But once we moved to America,
on the ship. So
once we moved to America, we did not have to turn in our passports. We kept them ourselves.
No, I was able to keep it. When I went up to the INT base, I had to turn it in. Did you?
Did?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, maybe that was because I got sent to the RPF there too. So.
Who did you have to turn it into?
Huh?
Who did you have to turn it into?
Port captain.
Oh,
it was Ken Hoden.
Now, so you got out of the RPF, and you're doing these projects at MEME and all that. So, at what point did you say, "Hey, you're going to be going up to work with L. Ron Hubbard," because he wasn't there, right?
No, I was told that, it was called Over the Rainbow. You're going to go over the rainbow. And I was put through a whole bunch of more security checks and different checklists and everything. When I came up there, I was 16.
And you showed
79.
up 79, so you showed up
end of
in
78,
Hammett,
the beginning of 79.
which is right when we were moving from La Quinta to Hammett.
That's
Gilman Hot Springs, not Hammett. Gilman Hot Springs.
Gilman Hot Springs.
Yeah, I was helping with that move from La Quinta to Gilman Hot Springs.
Do you remember going up there for the first? Do you remember going up there for the first time? Like, because it was a mystery. I mean, you didn't know where you were going, right?
No, I had no idea where I was going, and I was allowed to take the things I had in my room. I had a nice room in CMO Pack, like my dresser and stereo and whatever. Marty Rathbun drove me, and it was in the middle of the night. And I remember we were listening to Stevie Nicks sing Sarah. that song.
Just so everyone knows, that's how April remembers things, is by songs.
Okay.
Yep. I look up when
Yeah.
the song came out, and then I know, okay, that's the
Okay.
day. Yeah, that song had been out for a while. In meme, it was Grease. Everybody was listening to Grease.
Oh, I remember that. That was when I was an external comm in Clearwater. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Grease
that
came out,
was
and everybody
big time.
was watching Grease and singing Grease,
Yeah.
and we played the album over and over again. Yeah.
Yep.
Not everybody, because I was in the RPF.
Well, sorry
Grease
about
came
that.
And
out.
on the RPF, you're not allowed to listen to music. Oh, just to backtrack a little bit, when I was on the RPF in PAC, you know, the RPFers, you're not supposed to communicate with anybody outside the RPF, and you don't get to listen to music or TV, obviously.
Right.
There wasn't the no TV rule yet. That came later. But when we were in the galley, we had to be with the other non-RPF staff.
Yeah.
And they weren't denied the music. So I loved working in the galley because I got to listen to music.
Right.
There were people who were not in the RPF that would purposely put on the
Yes.
music and
Yes,
blare it up
they
loud
did.
so the RPFers could hear it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So that
Anyway,
night,
so-
I went up there and I met Shelly.
Did you go to did you go to La Quinta or did you go to Gilman Hot Springs?
No, Gilman Hot Springs.
Okay.
I went to La Quinta after I arrived at Gilman Hot
Right,
Springs,
right.
but just to help. That was very brief. It was just the last of things.
What did you think when you
Right.
got to Gilman Hot Springs for the first time? Because I remember arriving at night. It was so dark I couldn't see anything. And waking up the next morning and I see these mountains and everything around me, I was like, wow.
I was wowed by it. Yeah, I was very wowed by it. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I got taken on a tour by Susie Newman and
Susie
Bennick.
Yeah, Susie Bennick. She wasn't Susie Bennick yet.
But you knew her. You'd grown up kind of with her too, right?
Yeah.
In LA?
Yeah, I was so happy to see her because I hadn't seen her since Cadet Org. I didn't know she was up there.
Right.
So it was great to see a familiar face. And I saw Terry. I saw Karen, KK. Karen,
Oh, yeah.
Karen
Griffin. Karen Kamen, Karen Griffin.
Kamen,
Yeah.
that's right.
Karen
Kamen,
Siebold.
and then she became Karen Siebold.
Yeah.
And then she married
Lois.
Ivano.
Huh? Oh, I don't know.
KK married Ivano.
I never kept up with after.
Yeah, trust me, she changed her name
Siebold.
like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. Yeah, so I met all those people up there, and Susie took me on a tour and explained to me about Massacre Canyon Inn and how there had been a big Indian massacre there, and that's why they named it after that. The properties it was gorgeous. Wasn't too well lit, and I remember, I'll never forget the very first night I had to take something up to one of the main houses from the house that we were handling telexes in. And I went up to that house and I hear this screaming and it sounds like somebody's getting killed. I was scared out of my mind. I ran as fast as I could to get up to that house and I go, somebody's getting killed out there. Come on out here. And everybody came out and it was a screech owl. That was the first time I heard a screech owl.
Oh, a screech owl. Oh.
Yeah. I never heard one before, so I didn't know. It literally sounded like somebody was getting killed. It was like, ah, ah, you know. It was really crazy. And I was put on as a ghost messenger. LRH came out with ghost messenger and assistant messenger. I was the first ghost messenger, and I was ghosting Shelley Barnett, Shelley Miscavige. She wasn't Shelley Miscavige yet.
Where were the CMO offices then? Because you're there at the very early time. Where did you guys work?
Ranchos
and 40 House and 118 House.
Well, the 40 House was the CMO for SU, and the Ranchos were CMO International. Well, we didn't do international yet, but we did do some. But the 40 House was those directly dealing with SU, and external comm was in the Ranchos with us.
Got it.
Yeah.
And Del Sol was a dump, right? There was nothing going on.
Del Sol was storage. There's just storage in there.
Del Sol was considered condemned.
Yeah.
It was bad shape.
Yeah, it was bad shape up when I first got up there, and they said, Miscavige walks through there and goes, hey, you know what? We could put international CMO and international management here, and then it got renovated,
There you go.
Anyway.
And the Ranchos, I started learning, doing all the CMO hack courses, and I did the EPF again. And yes, I saw Jure and Dion and all those guys again. Right. We were doing dictation. LRH would send tapes, and we would type them up on typewriters. I remember those. We all had our specific typewriter that we liked. I remember that. Typewriters.
No computers at that time.
No, there were no computers.
No,
and they were manual. They were manual typewriters.
Yeah, manual. They were Olympia manuals. I loved them.
That's right.
I got to be really good at them.
That was our favorite.
Yeah, because we had to graduate on the ship from school. We had to be able to do 80 words a minute on a manual typewriter.
Yeah.
And I was so
this is not like Lil. You literally had to punch. You had to punch the keys,
Oh, yeah. I was so glad that I took typing in school. And so I learned to type really fast. So I fit right in. And I was typing up the dictation tapes. And I'll never forget, we were pulling an all-nighter on a Thursday, managing that when we get all the statistics in from all the organizations. And we were all really tired, and the room started kind of swaying like that. And I remember Gail was in there, Dee Dee was in there. I think you were in there too, Janice. KK was there, and we were all like, is the room swaying for you? Are we just tired? And it was an earthquake, and we all realized it, and then we ran out.
I experienced 2 or 3 while I was up there too. It's an experience, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Let me ask you: Did you meet David Miscavige at that time? What was he doing?
Oh yeah, I worked with them. Yeah.
Do you remember meeting him the first time, or where, or what you were doing?
Yeah, he was coming in to see Shelley because they were dating, and I was ghosting Shelley, and then I was her
Dave?
assistant.
What was he doing then, Janice?
Mission ops.
Yeah.
So was he building the gym then with Captain Bill and all that, or no?
Oh, yeah, no, that came way later.
Okay.
Building the.
He was on the shoot crew. Well, was he on the shoot crew then?
He was on the shoot crew.
Okay.
And he was up there when we were doing the at the reservoir when I saw LRH. He was doing that in mission ops.
Okay.
Yeah, he was.
Tell everybody about the first time you saw Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard, and met him. But that was.
Well, I was going to tell you about the first time I saw Dave.
Oh, go ahead.
Because he was having a kind of a snit with Shelley. They would fight constantly. They would fight, and they would smoke like crazy. And he'd bring her cigarettes as a present. I was like, wow, what a present. To me, that's not a present. That's gross. But anyway, and when he would get mad, and this was at anybody or anything he ever got mad at, every single time I saw him, he would slam the crap out of the door. And every building and office that we were in that he entered or had ever been in had the doorknobs coming off because he would slam the door so hard and just be like completely antagonistically angry. And I remember thinking, that is not Scientology. That is not what I grew up with. This is not right.
I thought the same thing. Well, every time I was around him, I thought the same thing.
And then I thought, well, so is this how it is up here? Is there something different up here? Did LRH write some other policy? Because he seemed to be able to get away with it, no problem. No one ever said anything to him about it. And I didn't understand that. But, you know, he was way senior to me. I'm just an assistant messenger to Shelley. And so that was my first experience with him. He was all right with me. He, I guess because I was kind of respectful because I was an assistant. And he liked it if you were, you know, bow down to him. So he was okay with me.
He had to be like 17, 18 years old then too, because you know what I mean. So he was a young kid.
A couple years older than
I met him when he was 16. You know.
Yeah.
And anyway.
Yeah, I think he was 18. He's just a couple years older than me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I went up to the first time I met LRH. We were doing a shoot up to the reservoir, and I was ghosting. And at first, I came up there. He was pretty jolly that night, so I guess things were going well on the shoot. Because there was nights that I saw him where he was not so jolly, but that night he was. So I was thankful for that. But when I got there, I couldn't see him. He was there, and until he actually said to I think it was Claire Rousseau. He said to her, he's like, "Who's that?" And I didn't recognize him or the person that said that. And she said, "Oh, that's a new assistant messenger." And he's instantly, as soon as she said, "That's a new assistant messenger," I recognized him. And I felt like he had something where he could make it so you didn't recognize him until he felt like it was okay. Because it was really weird. I didn't recognize him until she said that, and he knew it was okay for me to be there. Because he was like,
did he have long hair? Did he have long hair then and wearing a hat, or what did he look like?
He would kind of in between, longish, and he had
a
cap on.
Was that in the res doing the photo shoot?
Yeah, that was at the res. It was outside.
Yeah,
we were outside shooting for whatever tech film. I don't remember which one it was.
So once you recognized him, did he get introduced to you, or did you just carry on?
Yes. Yeah. And then we just carried on, and I observed.
Uh-huh.
And once in a while, I would go get something because I was an assistant messenger, you know, learning. And I would come up there, you know, whenever Shelley was going up there for the shoots and basically observe and assist on getting things to the set and things like that.
Right. Yeah. At that time was when Hubbard was living in Hemet at an apartment complex that we called X. Right. And they would set up the shots in the reservoir, the upper res, and JB, John Brousseau, was the driver at the time, and Wick Alcock, but mostly JB. So LRH would get in the van with the messengers, and JB would drive us from X to the base up to the res. And then he would stay and do shoots and then go have a snack over in Bonnie View with Paco serving him, go back to the res and do more shoots, and then go home at X.
Yep.
Yeah, I never
Yeah, I
knew.
remember
I never knew that you guys shot up above in the upper reservoir. I never knew that. I mean, it was always outside the property. There was always a fence behind Bonneview. Bonneview was the house that was going to be Hubbard's and stuff, right?
Well,
Yeah, there was no fence. There was no fence behind Bonnie View or anything.
No,
like
later,
that.
later when I got up there,
later.
later there was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But and while we were shooting in the res was when they started doing the building of the gym down by Massacre Canyon Inn by the dining room, just over to the side there.
Which became the Cine Studio. They called it the gym for PR purposes for the building department, but they were building a soundstage.
Right. I forgot we called it the gym. Because we did make another gym that was actually a gym way later.
Yeah,
but no, this was a soundproofed gym with no exercise equipment in it. Lots of eggshells.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about
not
that.
eggshells, egg cottons.
Yeah.
For sound. Yeah.
Yep. I remember that.
What was it like working with Shelley at that time?
That was wonderful. I loved her. She was great.
Yeah, in those days, the messengers were they were very friendly. I mean, you know what I mean? They had to do their job and all that, but they were all teenagers. Right?
I felt like a lot of camaraderie with every messenger.
Yeah.
Even Dave. And John Nelson. John Nelson was one person I did not feel much camaraderie with.
No, I didn't either.
Silent, angry, simmering beneath the surface type guy.
Yeah, wasn't he an ex-Vietnam veteran? Like he'd been in the war.
that was John.
No, John Nelson had been in Vietnam.
Yeah, and he kind of had that vibe.
Yeah,
like he'd been through some shit.
What was his last name?
Another John that had been in Vietnam.
Yeah, he handled the helicopter machine gun.
Oh, yeah. John Wiley.
John Wiley. John Wiley. Yeah, he worked with Paul.
John Wiley.
Great big Popeye forearms from it.
Yeah, he was a gunner in Vietnam and used to sit on his helmet, and that's what saved him, was sitting on his helmet because they'd shoot from below. But yeah, John Nelson had also been a NAM.
Yeah,
he did not.
And you could
about it.
Janice has told me stories because I never had this kind of relationship with Miscavige, but Janice used to tell him, he was just like one of the kids. You guys would wrestle with Janice and you goof around with him. He had a temper, but it wasn't like he didn't have any really seniority over other messengers at that time, right?
No. And the biggest thing I did with Dave, almost till when I left, was we would send each other music. Set tapes with music that we liked. And we'd find some really cool music that we liked, and we'd say, hey, check this out. And he'd send me a tape, and hey, check this out. So music was a big deal for me, back and forth with him. And when I was later sent to the decks and had to do the EPF later on, while I was up there, he was moving up the ranks in CMO. He was action chief. And I had to clean he and Shelley's room. By that time they were married, and they always would let me play their stereo, and their stereo was this high-end incredible stereo, and I loved that. At that time, that was when Janice and Cirrus got sent to the decks too. And we just had a new laundry room, and Andrew Barton, Liz Ingber's nephew.
Younger brother.
Oh, younger brother. Okay.
Yeah.
Was getting through the EPF for the CMO. And I was in charge of the Estates Project Force for the CMO at that time. So I was putting him through the CMO EPF. And Janice and Cirrus were on the decks doing laundry for all the executives. And I'll tell you, the song that was playing then was Stevie Wonder's "Isn't She Lovely." I remember that.
You're talking about Cirrus Porter, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had a crush on John Nelson. She wanted to marry him.
Well, that's probably because he looked a little like Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers.
Well,
that's who Cirrus was so in love with.
No question. Very, very handsome guy.
Yeah.
My
ex-wife is the one who married him.
Yes, that's right. She did.
I remember when they got in trouble because they were both sick and they were both in their room, their living quarters, and they got in trouble for being in there together and having a good time.
Who are you talking about?
Julie and John.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
They were quarantined to their room. I'll never forget.
Oh, were they married then or no?
Yeah.
Were they married?
Yeah. They were quarantined to their room, and it was like, no, that's not okay. And they split them up. I was like, why? That's ridiculous. When that happened, I was in WDC. Watchdog Committee had been formed. And I had two jobs. One was WDC, and I was in charge of marketing. It was called WDC Promo. Right. And my other job was data, CIC, Control Information Center.
Yeah.
Control Information Center. It's named after the military. The military calls it the same thing.
Yeah.
And I would collect all the statistics every Thursday, and I would have all hands on deck to put all the statistics that came in on a telex, because that's the only way we could get them, on graph paper in giant binders that I made up for all the graphs for each organization. So each organization had their binder full of statistical graphs.
And you had to hand graph them, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
And that graph paper was pink. So we had pink out. If you made a mistake, you used pink out instead of white
out.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. But those graphs April put together will be in binders per org, and the various messengers on Watchdog Committee would have to analyze those stats, and then they'd all be sent over to X for Hubbard to look at on Friday.
All those binders would get sent over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was the one
called the stat evolution.
Yes, that's what it was called. And I was the one that came up with the idea to get that kind of graph paper and get those binders, because before that it was a bunch of telexes, and telex paper kind of disappears. It doesn't last long.
It vanishes.
So if you go to try to put something on there, which we were trying to do prior to me doing that, it would just fade. So I ended up getting all that graph paper and binders and labeling all the binders with which organization they were, and buying a whole ton of pens. We had black for going up and red for going down, if the statistic was going down. And I would have to train everybody on how to read the telex and put the numbers on the graphs and get them all done in time for the and how to proportionately do that graph so that it wasn't steep, and it was like everything fit in the graph.
So you could read the trends properly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a whole technology to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And while you were doing that there at the Gilman Hot Springs, the International, we were doing it in Clearwater. The same thing.
Yeah. And eventually while I was doing that, I was allowed to have a phone line in LAC to the different organizations or different continents.
Right.
And Janice, you and I were talking about that last night. That's how we learned our geography.
Yes.
We had a great big map
Yeah.
that had all the organizations pinned in every continent as to where they are, and the different color pins for C organization as opposed to a mission, as opposed to a class 5 org or whatever.
Yeah, you know, it's funny too, because we had that in Clearwater too. Like if you had like if you were in charge of the East US or the West US or whatever, you'd have a map of the United States. It made you, you know, we were trying to clear the planet, right? So it made you feel like you were responsible for that, all the people
for that section.
in that section of the planet. You know what I mean? So if you were like in charge of Europe, you had a map of Europe and you felt you were in charge of that. I mean, it was a tremendous feeling. I remember as a manager thinking, man, I'm doing something good. I'm going to take care of these people.
Yeah. I totally thought I was.
On the ship, we had a hand-drawn map of the world with the pins of all the orgs. And and as April said, that's how I learned the whole world as into what countries exist and the capitals of the different states and what's in America and what's in South Africa, and, was running messages down to CIC.
Yeah. And that's when Janice learned that Australia is actually at the bottom of the globe, not the top.
No, that's when I learned that map was upside down.
The other night, Janice was showing me pictures of some people in Denmark. And I'm looking at it and I go, I know that person. She goes, how could you? They never came to the U.S. And I was like, well, yeah, how could I? But I know that person. I do know that person. It's because I talked to them on the phone on Thursday nights. So I did know the person. I talked to them on the phone.
Well, and it's the same thing, but like I hear names and I go, oh, I remember that name. And it would be like a name like Norm Nowitzki. I never met this person, but he was like the executive director of some org, because you'd see it come up in reports on the data files. So these names pop into my head, but I don't have a picture of a face because I never met the person,
Right.
Well,
I have the same thing.
In CIC, I did have pictures of the executives on the planet. And so I did have a face to go with the person I was talking to, but I didn't actually meet this person that Janice and I were talking about. And I was trying to figure out, how do I know them? I know them. And that was how. I was talking to them on Thursdays.
Well, we're just over an hour right now. This might be a good place to sort of stop for this show, and we'll have to have you on again because we're just getting into the meat of it right now.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, we definitely have to do that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, April, we're really loving this. I mean, this is fun because we remember these times, when we were up there. That's why, like, I asked about what did you think of Gilman Hot Springs and meeting Hubbard and all that, because they were exciting times for us. We were young teenagers and stuff, and this is before a lot of the abusive behavior and stuff happened, and so. But we'll get into that too because it did then become a hellhole after a long period of time. So anyway.
I was going to say one more thing about LRH.
Go ahead.
Night.
Yeah.
He, I think it was Terry. Who was the camera person?
Terry.
Okay,
Terry.
So it was Terry. He got really mad at her, and he yelled at her. And then he thought better of it, and he said, send her to cramming on how to focus, I think it was, focus the lens, and give her a session, an ARC break session on me yelling at her. I never forgot that. I was like, wow, you turned around and you decided to, clean up your yelling at her.
Right.
I never forgot that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
anyway
happened.
We were used to being yelled at.
Oh yeah, all of us were. But
well, yeah, it was like you had to be a duck with water would just rub off your back. If you got yelled at,
Yeah.
you know, the secret was to not take it personally. You know,
Yeah.
Right.
they were yelling at you because something you did wrong or something you didn't understand, not you're a piece of shit, you know, or there wasn't a personal attack. It was upset about the
Exactly.
situation. And then as soon as that was over, that anger would go away. You know what I mean? That was my experience. And to be just to jump way ahead, to me, when it got personal, when Miscavige started personally going after me, that's when I went like, fuck you. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm ready to get out of here because it wasn't like that before.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's totally different.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm having fun. This is fun. Anyway, we want to thank everybody for being here and thank April. Please subscribe to our channel. Rock slam that like button.
Slam the like.
And if you want a Rock Slam t-shirt, I'm going to put it down below. You can order it and you'll be able to see it. There's a male version and a female version of the t-shirt, and with a different logo. So anyway, if you're interested in that, you can get it down below. Also, if you have any questions or comments about what we talked about, please offer them up down below. Again, we read them all. And you can support our channel. Buy us a coffee. Go in the description. Click on the link. You can send us money by buying coffee for us. So we appreciate any support we get from our viewers. This has been a lot of fun. If you guys have anything else you want to say here before we end off the show?
I'm looking forward to the next one.
I know. We'll have to schedule it in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Until next time. Thanks for being here, April. Until next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.